You or someone you love is a high-achieving executive or entrepreneur. Others expect you to have it all together all the time. But the truth is this: it takes a tremendous amount of energy and hard work. You've sacrificed a lot and are wondering if it's really worth it. People make changes for one of two reasons: from the rock bottom of desperation or from a point of inspiration. In this new 12-week pilot series, we explore the following themes. Unlock your intuition and unleash your true potential as a high-achieving executive. Transform your company culture and elevate your leadership with unique perspectives and group intelligence. Choose inspiration over desperation and embark on a journey of personal and professional growth. Discover the power of intuitive wisdom and group intelligence to transform yourself and your company with Amanda and Suzette's groundbreaking new series, Freedom Flow Fridays. Amanda and Suzette are on a mission to support the transformation of executives and their companies, teaching them how to access intuitive wisdom and harness the power of group intelligence through embracing unique perspectives of individuality. Suzette and Amanda have joined collaborative forces to give high-achieving executives and A-player business leaders a new personal foundation, empowering themselves to upgrade the culture for themselves first, and then for their companies. So be sure to join Amanda and Suzette every Friday morning, 8 a.m. PST, live on LinkedIn. And together we will unblock the flow of your freedom week by week.
Hello, hello.
Nice to see you, Suzette.
Hi, Amanda.
Oh,
Here we are, episode number 9 of Freedom Flow Fridays. My name is Suzette West, and with me is my lovely, radiant co-host, Amanda A. Carpenter. Yay! So we took a week off last week, but we're back, and we're ready to continue this 12-week experiment. And after today, we're going to have 3 more episodes left in this experiment, and what a journey it's been. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I love the topics that we dive into. Really deep topics that I'm sure the average person's probably not going to have over the course of a day. But we're going to dive into it because they are important topics, and the more we talk about it, the more aware we are of things, important things. And today we're going to be talking about resistance. It's such a human experience, resistance. Like, how many times have you you have to do something and you just I don't want to do it. So for this episode, we're just going to cover the 3 basic things about resistance. Like, for example, what is resistance? And why does it happen? And how do we move through it toward the highest and best outcome. So we're just kind of keeping it very simple today. I'm thinking, I want to ask Amanda, how do you feel about doing a quick heart lock-in so we can just kind of drop in before we get started?
Sure. I need to charge my battery a little bit. I'm I'm in a very content place, but not in a place to get any work done. So I'm going to shift to a quick coherence. Let's focus our attention in the area of our heart. Imagine our breath is flowing in and out of our heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and a little deeper than usual. Find an easy rhythm that's comfortable. And remember, this is a technique that can charge our battery or ground us. So for me, I'm looking for the charge. And now make a sincere attempt to re-experience your regenerative feelings such as care, kindness, appreciation for someone or something in your life.
That was great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about this now. The very real human experience of resistance. And I know you have a lot to say about resistance because we've talked about that at length in the past in previous conversations. It's such a real thing. But do you want to start off the conversation about resistance? Do you want to, or do you want me to?
Yeah, you can start off with what is resistance, and then I'll kind of chime in. I have other stuff to say after that.
Yeah.
You start off.
So, resistance is that thing inside of us that resists something that maybe we know we need to do. And sometimes that resistance can be so strong that we get stuck. We get stuck in things. Resistance is knowing you have to do something, or knowing that something needs to be done, or something you know that you need to do, but for some reason either there's something that is keeping you from doing it, even though you know you need to. And at the root of resistance is fear, like a fear of change, a fear of perhaps overextending yourself. I mean, there's underlying reasons, and they're going to be different for everyone, but generally it's around something that you know you need to do, but for whatever reason, either it's difficult, either it's something unpleasant. It could be a conversation, a tough conversation you have to have with someone. It could be some decisions that could be really disruptive, and you don't want to do it because you know it's disruptive, but you know you need to because otherwise things are just going to get worse. Resistance is a way that our inner selves communicates with us to let us know to deepen our attention and take a closer look at what's happening and why. I think the first part of meeting resistance is to hold compassion for ourselves. Because that's like, I remember when ever I've felt resistance, like I would totally beat myself up. Like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. And I need to get up. I'm so this, I'm so that. If I don't do this, I'm just no good or whatever. And I would totally beat myself up when I was in resistance, because to me it was like something was wrong with me. And as I went through my healing journey, and the healing journey is ever evolving, nothing is ever perfect, you're never 100%. Do I still beat myself up? Yeah, I do, but not as much as I used to. I curbed that down a little because it didn't serve me. It was when I learned, and I learned this through one of the spiritual teachers that I follow. Her name is Tara Brach. She is a Buddhist teacher, and she talks about radical compassion. And I believe she even has a book about that. And there's so much out there regarding compassion and having a compassion practice. And I really listened to the teachings of mindfulness and compassion. And the first thing is we have to learn to be kind to ourselves. And I never realized that I wasn't. So the first step to dealing with my resistance was just to understand I'm human, and I need to meet myself with kindness. And I need to cut myself some slack and just be with the feeling. I'm having resistance right now. Something's trying to tell me something. Instead of beating myself up, let me just drop in and check out what's happening inside. Where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? What is surrounding this feeling that I'm having? And then just with kindness for self, just be with it without making it mean anything, without assigning a story or a narrative, and just being compassionate and still and peaceful and just, we got this. We're going to get through this. This is just an emotion, and a feeling fully felt passes through. So, do you want to dovetail off of this, Amanda?
Sure. So, when I'm explaining resistance to people, I always love to use the comparison of water. And when we're in water and we're submerged in water, when we are moving in water, there's a resistance of our body's movement in water. And the faster we try to go, the more resistance there is. When we slow down, there's less resistance. So in my physical therapy practice, if I'm referring somebody for aquatic exercise or teaching them aquatic exercise, I have them move real fast if I want a lot of resistance. And if I don't want much resistance, I have them slow down. So really, when we look at that from a perspective of resistance in our life, I think it's easy enough to say, when we are going too fast, when we have too much going on, when there's an overwhelmed state, we hit resistance and we don't even know it. And so we're fighting a fight that we don't even need to be fighting. But if we slow down, if we surrender, number one, we float better, we go with the flow better, and there's less resistance. So that, for me, is that perfect reminder of when we slow down, go with the flow, float, no matter how aware, awake, enlightened we become, we're still human. We're still human, like Suzette just referenced. We still have these issues ourselves. We just have a lot of tools now to navigate. And when I'm in the midst of, some challenge or change, sometimes it feels like I'm in the level 5 rapids, but I remind myself to let go with the flow, release resistance. And then when you slam up against the rocks, it doesn't hurt as bad.
I know. So I just remembered our last episode, and we were talking about a full plate. Mm. I think also resistance can also happen when that plate is full. Mm-hmm. When your bandwidth is maxed out, that can also trigger resistance, because it's our bodies telling us, you've got too much on the plate. Mm-hmm. You've got too much on the plate. We've got to move stuff off. And sometimes it's a really difficult thing because maybe everything on the plate is important. Mm-hmm. But I think that the key word in this area is discernment. Mm-hmm. By asking, yes, it's important, but important to who? Mm-hmm. Right? Now look at that plate. Who? Is it mine? No. Off it goes. Next. Is that mine? No. Off it goes. Next. It's so hard though in theory, it's like, okay, I can do this. I can unload my plate. But when those items on your plate are expectations of others, and they're super important to others, those others are going to project that it's something that you absolutely cannot move off your plate. But see, that's what discernment and dropping into our own selves to really feel into, is this mine? We have to ask, is this mine? Is this really mine? That plate has to get cleared. It's not sustainable to have a full plate. So when the plate is full, our bodies are amazing, have amazing tools and ways of letting us know, hey, something is wrong. Something needs to be, this is too much. This is too much. And what happens when we don't listen, then our emergency shutoff valve happens, and then we get, things will happen. For example, I was really busy and I was go every single day, just nonstop, do. And I got sick. My body got sick. It's like, no, you're not gonna do this. We're gonna get sick so that your butt is in bed and not getting up out of bed until we're feeling rested. So our bodies will shut us down if it feels we are in emergency mode, where we're not getting enough rest, where we're not getting enough sleep, or we're not prioritizing, or we're taking on too much. Our nervous systems are set up to handle only so much, and then it becomes overloaded. So if you've ever been in a home that had tube and wire and it can't handle a lot of currents, otherwise it blows the entire system out of the home, this is what happens with humans. Like, we're only designed to carry so much before it becomes overload. And when we get overloaded, that resistance is going to come up strong, especially if it's regarding something that is not ours. It's really going to come up strong. So when the plate is full, resistance can happen. When any kind of major change needs to happen, that resistance can also come up too. I want to talk about a situation that's happening for chief diversity officers in the first 2 years. I want to kind of talk about that because that's a problem that's happening right now. So there is a high demand for chief diversity officers, and the churn rate, the turnover rate, is also high. That's a problem. And according to the research that I've done and the many DEI leaders that I've spoken to so far, the number one reason is that lack of leadership support. Leaders think, hey, it's your job. I hired you for this. Do what you got to do. And then expect to make all the changes. And it doesn't work like that. But there's a disconnect. We need more caring leadership. We need more engaged leadership. We need more leaders that are committed and fully committed and supporting new CEOs in their roles. But that's not happening. And there's a lot of resistance. I mean, Yeah, CEOs are busy. But we have to make time for people. We have to invest in people, because that's just what we need to do as leaders. We invest in ourselves, we invest in our people. But the resistance is strong because there's so much around the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's very polarized, and it's so sad. I don't want to get on a diatribe about that, but I'm going to go ahead and hand that off to Amanda and see what she has to say on the topic of resistance and all that great stuff.
Yeah. So you were mentioning the resistance that's happening in corporations, and we're seeing a lot of resistance right now. And really, when it comes down to it, it's resistance to change, period, right? It's really difficult for humans to tolerate change, because change to the nervous system, when we move away from the familiar, it freaks out the nervous system. Even when we move to something that's healthier, that's safer, that's quieter, that's calmer, if it's not what we're used to, it freaks us out. So a lot of my clients are so used to the busyness and the chaos that when it's too quiet, when it's too calm, it feels very uncomfortable. And so subconsciously what happens is they're looking for a fire to put out. So they were so used to putting out fires before the big pandemic. Now everything's reorganizing and people are no longer driven by fear. So, are we creating these fires because of the resistance? And when it comes to resistance, where there is resistance, it really shows us where there's a conflict between our inner knowing and something we believe we should be doing. So somebody else's belief being imposed upon us versus our inner knowing. So let's use an example. An example would be, I'm pushing too hard, I'm too busy, I have too much going on, and I need a nap. But I don't have time for a nap. My body's telling me I need a nap. And I'm resisting that nap, taking that nap, saying, I don't have time for that. I have this and this and this that I have to get done. I'm trying to meet somebody else's expectations. I'm not giving myself permission to take that nap. Now, why is that resistance there? Because I have some internal wiring in my operating system that tells me that it's not okay to put myself first. And for me personally, it's because I watched my mom do that. My mom raised 4 children. And my dad worked all day. My mom raised children and actually took children into the house to babysit. So she was essentially a stay-at-home mom, but with other children as well. And she did not stop and take a rest until she got sick. So into my 30s, I did not stop and rest until I got sick. I even once heard my brother say, man, I need a good flu. And I was like, what? Yes, you did just say that. Yeah. And this was after my sickness and after my transformation that he said that. I was like, you better take some time off, because 23 years of being a physical therapist, I have seen the body take people out of situations that they're not courageous enough to move towards. So I'll hear them say, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep doing this. There's resistance to letting go and taking time off because they're holding themselves accountable to something that they don't truly internally want to be doing. And then boom, inevitably something will happen. I mean, one of the most crazy, bizarre ones that happened was I had this patient, and my assistant and I were both treating this patient. So it wasn't just me that observed this happening. So it was quite a topic to talk about. So this particular patient kept saying, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep doing this, but there's good money in the job. And, I can't keep doing the drive. Like, we would hear her say that every single day. And then all of a sudden, she has a spontaneous knee fracture. Like, she doesn't fall. She doesn't have an injury. Like, the knee fractures. And she ends up needing major surgery. So in the midst of the major surgery, she ends up losing the job because it wasn't anything job related. She ends up losing the job that we were hearing her say, I can't keep doing anyway. So it's really interesting. The body will speak and the cells hear. It's a whole nother topic, right? But the cells hear what we're saying. So that's kind of my natural transition from being a physical therapist into being a coach. I saw what happened to the body when people were saying things repetitively, and when they didn't meet their own physical needs, boom, the body takes over, because it'll kick our ass over into parasympathetic relaxation. Chronic fatigue syndrome is a result of the gas tank being empty. right? So if we go too much, the gas tank runs dry and we get our ass kicked over into a parasympathetic state. What's the difference between chronic fatigue and relaxation? It's all perspective, right? So when somebody who's used to chaos and going in a high energy state suddenly finds themselves in a lower energetic state, they tell themselves it's fatigue. I should be able to do more. I should be able to get out there and do more. And so this is so much the resistance that I see in human behavior. So where you see resistance, look for the conflict. Where's the conflict between your body's intuition and inner knowing versus you living in accordance to somebody else's patterns or values?
Yeah. Or your body just is telling you, we need some rest. We need rest. I never realized how important sleep was until like this past year, how important sleep really is. Like I knew it was important, but I didn't know how critically important it is. I mean, literally, this is our ability to live a long life, and give our body the rest that it needs to repair itself. And when we're always on the go, it doesn't have the opportunity. Our emergency shutoff valve will happen, and it's happened to me. I had a motorcycle accident because when was it? It was like in 2018, like a year after I started writing, and I just kept feeling the promptings in my heart: slow down, you got to slow down, and not just. I wasn't speeding on my motorcycle, by the way. I'm just talking in life in general. The pace of my life was just constant, and I just would get on the bike and have a morning ride, and I was on a morning ride and I wasn't listening. I was just go, and on my morning ride I came to some gravel, and my top heavy motorcycle did not fare well with that and went down, and I broke my arm. And I was down for a few months with a broken arm and having to have a steel rod in my arm. But it was, like you said, those synchronicities that happen when you're not listening. These synchronicities happen to get what we need, to slow us down. Like you say, I need a good flu right now. Gosh, but it's really important, though, I think, to recognize resistance for what it is, which I feel is our inner selves calling for our attention. When the true self is calling for us that it needs our attention. And so many of us are not really connected to that true self because we are primarily externally, as a overall culture. I mean, humanity is overall externally defined because we have to fit into certain traditions, we have to fit into certain philosophies, we have to fit into certain tribal mindsets, or else we feel like we're going to get rejected. So the tendency to conform takes us away from that true part of who we are. And yet it's that true part where everything, our whole selves, this is where we are. Everything that is us is in here. Our fulfillment, our blueprint for life, our calling, our purpose, who we are, what we want, what would make us happy, what would really fulfill us. All this is in here to be a fully expressed human being. Like you are the ultimate expression of who you're meant to be in this lifetime. All of that is inside. All of that is in the true self. The true self knows. And so to reconnect to that true self means that there's probably going to be a lot of headwinds because oftentimes the external world is not going to align with what the internal true self wants. And that's where a lot of conflict happens. And if our sense of self is not strong, if we are not truly anchored into that true self, people will project their urgencies on us, and we will end up living our lives subject to other people's wants, needs, desires until the last day on earth, and we can look back and say, wow, I wish I would have lived my life differently. I wish I would have lived my life more for me. And the resistance is that little voice that's trying to reach you to tell you that something's not in alignment, that something needs attention, that we need to take a deeper look and see what's happening. It's like it's a breadcrumb. It's a sign of needing to drop in and really feel what wants to be there. What is emerging? What wants to be heard in that moment? Because when we can slow the mind down, get out of our heads, get back into the body, and just focus all of the attention on what's going on inside, you can actually feel, sense, see where the resistance is coming from. And if we're honest with ourselves, and not judging, but just in a space of kindness, just to allow it to be there. Just be with it. Be with that discomfort and let it communicate what it needs to say, and just receive that information with a grateful heart, because it's there for our fulfillment. It's there watching after us. It's watching over us. It's telling us things that are important to feeling authentic in our lives, feeling like we matter to ourselves first. Because when we matter to ourselves first, we take care of ourselves. We listen to that voice. We're compassionate when we're feeling that resistance. It's like, oh, I know, this is terrible. We're going to get through it. We got this. How different life changes when we do that, instead of, oh, you're dumb. Oh, you're so lazy. Oh, you shouldn't be like doing this. Oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Oh, you're, because that is deteriorating. That is deteriorating. That is corrosive, self-draining. So we've talked about what resistance is. We talked about why it happens. Let's talk about how we move through it now. And Amanda, do you wanna take that one?
Sure. I just wanted to circle back for another potential of why it happens. So first, I didn't know you fractured your arm though on the motorcycle accident. I did that same thing in 2017. So you said yours was in 18, I believe. 2017, I broke my ankle. And that was the universe saying, slow your ass down, sit your ass down. Right? So yes. So I had plenty of time. And then I didn't hear what I needed to hear and get done what I needed to get done by slowing down. And literally 3 weeks after starting to walk on that ankle again, I was speaking at a conference in New Jersey, and I woke up to hit the alarm button across the room and went to jump back in bed while it was snoozing, and I stubbed my big toenail off on the other foot. And so that brought me to my knees way more than the ankle fracture. And I was like, I surrender. Okay, I'm going to listen. I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to slow down. Okay, leave my feet alone. Right? But it did. It literally brought me to my knees. So it's amazing what can happen when we injure ourselves. And sometimes there's a blessing in that. Louise, hey, check out metaphysical meanings of different body parts stuff to our audience. It can be fun to follow. So one other reason that, why does resistance happen? I want to point out that sometimes resistance can actually be good. Okay. So, and here would be an example. Okay. This is an example that happened several years ago. And it's such a perfect example. I had to be out of the office for an appointment. and I was running late. And there was this internal conflict, like knowing I was running late, almost like I was running late on purpose. It was so weird. And so I finally get in the car and I'm driving, and like I go to speed up to pass this one car, and then that doesn't feel right. So I slow back down, and like I was like, okay, I'm going to be late. I know I'm going to be late at this point in time. It feels a little bit uncomfortable that I'm going to be late. Anyway, I get to the exit that I'm supposed to get off, and I get off the exit, I turn right, I'm headed to my destination. And literally like 2 or 3 minutes before I came up on that intersection, right before my destination, there's a massive accident. And so the resistance was there, and it was almost like I was consciously playing with it in a way that was different than like, being late because I had my head down doing something. And so that was an example that like there was some resistance to me being on time for a reason. There was that ultimate like synchronicity that came upon and was like, oh, thank you. That's where that came from. So when we know our intuition, when we know how to read our intuition in our body, we can discern the resistance. So we can ask ourselves, where is this coming from? Is it resistance that is truly to protect me? Or is it the resistance of the monkey mind and the fear that I'm afraid to do this because it's uncomfortable, versus there really truly is some resistance and some energy in the field to slow you down on purpose in order to protect. So the discernment of how we interpret our intuition is really, really important. And I've done a lot of work with clients over the years, and I've found that the inner knowing intuition versus fear are almost always in the same locations in the body, but the energetic interpretation is different. So intuition is always expansive and opening and like flutters like wonder like a kid, like that excitement in the unknown. And the fear is always contracting. But oftentimes people will feel it in the same place in their body. So it's that interpretation of the energy that we're experiencing. And even from an emotional standpoint, renewing emotions are expansive and depleting emotions are contracting. So really getting in touch with knowing how to interpret the intuition is a key to knowing how to interpret the resistance to really understand where it's coming from. Did you want to say any more on that?
Yeah. No, I think that really covers it. Resistance is just, that is a sign that we need to take a deeper look. To really take a closer look. What is this trying to say? And what I also know that the skill of tuning in to one's own inner landscape doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. This is something that has to go through a process of reconnection and strengthening, just like you would a muscle. That connection to that inner life is also like a muscle that you have to practice with, and that's what daily breath practice does for us. That breath practice, it strengthens the neural pathways and that reconnects us to ourselves. The neural pathway is where that habits are formed. So the habit of taking care of doing breath practice every day, that habit has to be, we have to do it to just keep reinforcing the habit to breathe, to connect, because the breath is the bridge that connects us from the outside to the inside. And many people are not accustomed to that. Granted, a lot more now than ever, but there's still a lot of people. There's a larger percentage of humanity who are not connected to their true selves and are still externally defined by external beliefs, conditioning of group dynamics, group culture, family culture. Many of us have to feel that we have no say in our own lives because we have to follow whatever traditions are dictated upon us. Oh, look, we have, I just want to, Manuel Padilla says, hey, from Facebook. And Johnny Harry says he really loves this. I'm really glad you guys are finding value in this conversation. It's really, really important because everything, it comes back down to that inner self, that connection with inner self. And instead of seeing resistance as a reason to shut down, or what happens too, and Amanda, you might know something about this, but my sister, who works with, she works as a substance use treatment counselor, and what happens is when we're not when we're not internally connected, a lot of things start to deteriorate our self-esteem. That resistance is uncomfortable. And so what happens is people check out. Like, it's too much to bear. It's too much to handle. So they check out. You literally check out. Your mind just goes somewhere to escape the discomfort of the feeling that we have. And that's usually the time when people go to like something to help them self-medicate, or to help them deal. So and when I was listening to one of Tara Brach's talks, and she talks about having the courage to stay when we have those moments of resistance, when we just don't know what to do and we just check out. We lean on our vices to help us get through those dark moments, that resistance. It can be very, very painful. But that's why it's also so very important to keep that compassionate spirit, because it really does make the difference. You see, if we keep beating ourselves up, we're depleting our own inner battery. We're draining it to the point where there's not enough energy to even lift our heads. Mm-hmm. So when you see someone who can't even get up out of bed because they're just, it's just too much. It's because they're feeling that. They're feeling a resistance and they don't know how to get in touch with it. It's just something that's showing up without any rhyme or reason, but there is a reason. We just don't know what we don't know. And that's why a lot of people suffer. That's why I suffered for so long, because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that I had to be kind to myself. I didn't know that I didn't have to believe every single thing that my mind tells me. I didn't know that I could question my thoughts. That, hey, let's talk about this for a minute, Suzette. What's really going on here? Like, that was something that I had to learn to do, and it took getting help for me, between helpers and healers and coaches, and I really invested in my own journey. So and it's always evolving. Like I said, we never stop healing, we never stop evolving, we never stop learning. And resistance is a signal to that there's something for us. There's something trying to make its way to our awareness. Something needs our attention. And sometimes all it needs is for us to be with it and just notice it without assigning a story. Don't make it mean anything, because that just perpetuates the suffering. Emotion is energy in motion. I know we've said this like so many times. So when it's spinning out of control, it feels counterproductive, but that's the time to really just, okay, sit. Just sit with it and let it spin. Just let it do what it's gonna do. Just be with it. Notice it. Don't try to overthink or analyze anything. Sometimes it just means being with what is. Being with what is. And giving ourselves the compassion to ourselves that we need. So it's like, we got this. It's gonna be okay. Just lean into it. Breathe through it. Sit here. It's just an emotion. And as long as I stay with it without making it mean anything, I know it's going to pass. And then with a clearer head, now I can go back and think about and really feel into what was the cause. Like, what happened? So sometimes we have to wait before we start exploring what things are about. Because when we're in the middle of that storm, sometimes the best thing to do is just to do nothing and sit and breathe and just be with yourself. We have to be with ourselves and not judging, but being very kind. And it's really, really strange. We are, as humans, we are natural to be kind to others, and it's just as common to be unkind to ourselves, how we talk to ourselves. And it's like I remember somebody said to me, whenever I hear someone saying that or talking to themselves or saying this negative self-talk, I ask them, would you talk like that to a little girl or your best friend? Would you talk like that to your best friend? No? Then why are you talking to yourself that way? Because words have power. The words we say to ourselves, the things we think about ourselves, these are having energetic consequences, whether we realize it or not. And over time, it accumulates. And over time, it can erode our self-esteem. Self-esteem is so essential. In the work that my sister does with clients that are in substance use treatment, they have no self-esteem. None. And they've been treated so bad. And so because the outside world treated them so bad, they believe it. I must be bad. And they allow themselves to hit rock bottom before they realize. Some realize, some don't. But the ones that realize they've hit rock bottom, suddenly it comes to their awareness that, hey, I am something, I mean something, I matter. And then slowly from that place, they start to love themselves. And it's from that place of self-love that they start taking care of themselves, that they start making changes. And the work that I did with my, she started out as a entry-level counselor, and she went through 2 toxic bosses and inherited a traumatized team, but through the tools that she learned, she then turned around and taught her team, taught her people, because they have to resource themselves, because they're dealing with a population that's very vulnerable. When you're working with people in that capacity, counselors use their energy to sustain their clients. When coaches, we use our energy to sustain our clients. Mentors, we use our energy to sustain our clients. The more that is needed, the more close to rock bottom, the heavier the energy investment. And they have to learn to resource themselves. Otherwise, they churn. Her counselors will churn. They'll burn out. They quit. They can't do the job. So the same dynamic that helps a person reestablish self-esteem, that helps people move through resistance, is the same exact dynamic for people that are working in like healthcare or substance use treatment, where it's a high stress occupation. And I know you know a lot about that, Amanda. So I'm going to go ahead and just pass that on to you and see what you might want to add on to that.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Suzette. You gave us lots of how do we move through it. You gave us lots of options there, just sitting with it and being with it and knowing how to interpret it. Resting, I just want to highlight that you said the importance of sleep earlier. Like when I'm working with clients, sleep is actually something that they're very compromised with. And sleep is the time where the body actually turns off to fix itself, to rejuvenate, right? So you can't fix a pump while it's pumping. You got to turn it off. You got to unplug it. You got to take care of it. That's the body in deep sleep. And then in our REM sleep, that's when the nervous system reprograms. So if we're working on change and we want to be more adaptable to change, sleep is so important. It's so weird. I never have my Oura ring on. Like I sleep with it on, but then I never have it on. And you talked about sleep. So the Oura ring I love with working with my clients to find out, what is happening with their body. And from there, there's so much that we can do, from the biochemistry and the genomics to the circadian rhythm. There's so much that we can do. So that's at the forefront of really helping to regulate the nervous system is sleep. But the other thing I also want to highlight is asking for help, right? Like we can't take ourselves where we haven't gone. Right? Like we don't know what's possible. So I think Einstein said it, you can't solve a problem with the same brain that created it, right? Like you will go round and round and you'll stay in the resistance until, like Suzette mentioned, you burn out until you're out of energy. You don't have any more energy to care anymore. So asking for help is such a key, and knowing who to ask for help is a key. Because when you go to somebody who you have an emotional attachment to or an emotional relationship with, they oftentimes want to rescue you from your pain, or they want to give you advice. They want to fix you, but we don't want to be fixed. We don't want to be validated. We want to be heard. And then through being heard and the resonance of that, oftentimes we can see our way out. So conscious friends who reflect back at us what they're hearing us say, who let us know what our intuition is actually saying. Suzette, do you realize you just said 5 times, I don't want to do such and such? Oh, wow. Okay. That's something to think about. The nervous system is saying, I don't want to. It gives you something to explore. And then also reaching out for coaches, mentors, guides, right? To take us. So there's always help through the resistance. It's just looking for the right support. The right support is key, because the wrong support actually can hijack you deeper into resistance. If somebody's trying to give advice, or because they don't have your intuition, they don't have your intuitive wisdom. So that was the last thing. We're coming to the end here. I don't know, Suzette, you always have a card. So do you have a card for us this week?
I do, actually. So this was card 22 from the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle by Kelly Sullivan Walden. And here's the card. Okay, so the card that I pulled was card 22, you were born for this. Foster your intention for incarnating in this dimension. And this is the card. It's pretty, very pretty. Okay, so here we go. This is stage 5, crossing the threshold. You were born for this. And it starts with a quote by Joseph Campbell. We must be willing to get rid of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. And that's Joseph Campbell. And the message says, I'm trying to get some light here. Here we go. You are alive with infinite possibilities. Every cell of your body sings and shouts a full-throttled yes to life. Before you were born, you had a reason, a strong desire for wanting to experience the human realm. You joyously raised your hand and stood on your tippy toes to volunteer to partake. Your soul smiled wildly as you traveled from the angelic realm, where all is love, whole and perfect, into the realm of humanity. Through the challenges that come your way, remember all you need to do is ask, and you will be instantly refueled by love and support from your soul family. They are always at the ready. Your job is to remember to remember. As you awaken each morning, revisit your passionate intention for this lifetime. Remind yourself, for this I was born. Gather your energy, creativity, talent, and will, so no part is left behind as you cross a new threshold of adventure. And the dream symbol is baby. Dreams of a baby symbolize a new beginning. This dream may be helping you remember your true nature, innocence, authentic, precious, and the indescribable beauty that reflects your divine origin. Perhaps you are embarking on a new relationship or endeavor. If so, approach the situation with fresh eyes and a wide open heart. Your spiritual umbilical cord connects you with your higher self as it cradles and feeds you the guidance you need as you take each baby step along your sacred journey. And the mantra is, vulnerability is one of my greatest strengths. I love that. That last part about vulnerability being a strength. It takes courage to be vulnerable. And it takes courage to be vulnerable with others. But if you have people, if you have that support system that allows you to be vulnerable, I can't tell you the incredible benefits of feeling supported by people that care. It takes our energy to a new level. It supercharges us. We get this feeling of being like the world. Like you're just a force. You become a force to be reckoned with when you have that support from an encouraging, supportive community. So yeah, this was a good conversation. I feel like being in that low energy, there's just a little tiny bit of that resistance to just show up and just allow it to flow. But I love the way, it's really weird. Like you were low energy, I showed up low energy. I'm like, yeah, we're both in the lower right quadrant. And for those that don't know what that means, that's the emotional awareness grid. And up at the top is high. Is your high excitement, your high energy, and then on the lower half it's the low energy, and then on this side over here you're at peaceful, on this side over here you're angry and you're stewing, and we're on the peaceful, quiet side, and I'm like, you know what, that's okay. I'm feeling a little bit of resistance, like I'm not sure I'm fully ready to show up, but I'm gonna show up. We're gonna do this. We're gonna show up, and we're just gonna flow. Because that's what we're all about. We're all about flowing. Freedom Flow Fridays. We're flowing. We're flowing and glowing and growing and sharing. And it's a wonderful thing. Very beautiful. And I feel very blessed. Angie Venaro says, it can be a roller coaster ride. It sure can. It sure can. But as long as we release, just release, allow, and be with what is, that's the very first step to just moving through the resistance. And with that, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. My name is Suzette West, and this is my lovely co-host, Amanda A. Carpenter. Oh, and by the way, she's having a retreat. Amanda, you want to share what's happening?
Sure, a retreat in September. we're hosting a retreat in Vermont for the healthcare provider community. So if you or somebody that you know is a healthcare provider, it has been such a rough couple of years for healthcare providers. I myself was a healthcare provider during the pandemic. So myself and the wonderful Lori Teal, she's a psychiatric nurse practitioner, are facilitating a retreat in Arlington, Vermont in September. So check out, it's on my Facebook page, LinkedIn page. It's out there, or reach out to me directly. Thanks so much, Suzette.
Yep. And we'll also post a link in the comments, so you can just check out the comments, and we'll put all of our gifts and offerings in the comments. If you found value, please check out the comments. We have lots of stuff there for you, and reach out too. So with that, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week. And this is always the fun part right here. All right, here we go. Bye.